meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560, The Answer.
Insert Democrat socialist here.
Runs the Democratic House floor for 30 plus years running. He's promising this and he's stealing that. Where can you get that kind of money? He's using your house like his own piggy bank. You ought to know by now. You can pay off your house here in Illinois, but you can never keep up with the taxes. Oh, it's always been the plan to have a taxpayer pay, no doubt. Not a matter of if anymore, but when. You're moving out. I said, when you're moving out.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. That sound means it's time for our weekly confab with Ted Dabrowski, president of Wirepoints.org, all things policy related. And, hey, you know those city-sponsored grocery stores that are all the rage among the neo-Marxist mayors, places like Chicago? The forthcoming Gimme Dat grocery stores that Brandon Johnson has proposed. Mamdani in New York proposed the same. Well, in Kansas City, they did it. Kansas City, Missouri, they did it. We have a real-world example. And the piece in the Bezos Post goes like this. It was the lone tomato in the produce bin that nearly made Marquita Taylor weep. Interestingly, Lone Tomato was the name of my college garage band. We were a Smashing Pumpkins tribute band. We used to kill with bullet with butterfly wings. But I digress. She stopped in her neighborhood grocery store, the place that was cause for celebration when it opened 7 years ago. Area residents had long lived without a decent supermarket in Kansas City's east side, and KC Sunfresh was the city's attempt to alleviate a lack of access to healthy food in its urban center. 7 years. Started, I guess it climbed to 14,000 customers, down to 4,000 now. Turns out there are a lot of crime and social issues in and around KC Sunfresh and KC. Many commentators pointing out that shoplifting, lack of law enforcement, and other issues that make it an unpleasant place to be have creeped in. And so the city has responded by pumping more money into it, but it continues to lose money. It's like the WNBA of supermarkets. Well, it turns out that, the grocery business is not for the faint of heart. Slim margins, complicated supply chains, fluctuating prices. You have to know what you're doing. It's not something you can just sort of take on as a hobby because you created a department in city government that says we're going to give people, out of a place of sentimentality, we're going to give people on the east side of Kansas City a grocery store because they deserve it. Well, what they deserve from the city and what the city should focus on, perhaps, is making the east side of Kansas City a hospitable place to do business. How about that? How about do something that you do have professionals or could have professionals in place to provide, which is a safe community, and then let people who actually know how to run grocery stores decide that it's attractive enough to locate a grocery store on the east side of Kansas City. What a concept. But to take that approach is to reject the central planning approach, the fatal conceit of the BLM Brandons and the Zoran Mamdanis of the world. Ted Dabrowski joins us now. Ted, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Good morning, Dan. Thanks for having me on.
Barely staying open is the KC Sunfresh, and that's despite hundreds of thousands of dollars, bad money after bad money being poured in by the city. What a surprise.
Well, what a surprise. And the thing is they can try to keep a government-owned grocery store going for a long time if they want to, right? They can just keep subsidizing losses and having a bigger and bigger mess. I'm surprised they let it get down to one tomato there. They could just plug more money in. But
well, no matter, but that's actually the interesting. I mean, the Soviet Union had a lot of grocery stores that were state backed, and they had some money for a time. But at the end of the day, money doesn't solve structural infirmities, and if you just don't know what you're doing in terms of the business, then you just fritter the money away, no matter how much you pour into it. I mean, that's the story with almost every government program. Why wouldn't it be the story with a government grocery store?
Well, exactly, and you just think about the CTA, and then that's the big discussion right now, and it's nearly $1 billion deficit. These businesses are hard to run. I mean, it's hard for people who are obsessed about making profits and, like you said, knowing supply chains, knowing how to manage inventory. You have to be obsessed, and it's still hard, and you still see that the major companies close down stores because they're not profitable. So it's really one arrogant to think that the government should be doing it. And two, it's just wrongheaded anyway, because like you said, really what you need in a place like where that Kansas City store is, you need safe streets so people can go in there and shop safely. You need safe streets so that you're not ripped off all the time as a store. And then you need low taxes so you can have an environment where other businesses start to thrive. It's really hard to have one business in the middle of nothing. You have to really make it an environment where people want to invest and live and can do so, prosperously. So,
you mentioned the CTA. I saw this in Crane Chicago Business, the anti-business magazine, pro rent seeking. Statewide Realtors Group plans to spend about $500,000 warning suburban residents that Springfield might increase real estate transfer taxes statewide as a source for bailing out the CTA. They say funding. I used the proper description. This is the message from Jeff Baker of the Illinois Realtors Association. Always bailing water, always on the back end, all these captains of industry and civic leaders, never on the front end. And they wonder why. Tell your legislator no suburban property transfer tax bailout for CTA. It says a possible increase in the transfer tax would boost the amount paid in 5 collar counties and the suburban part of Cook County by about 600%.
Yeah, it's just their next attempt at this real estate transfer tax. This is the one that they feel they have to go after because they need money desperately. They won't reform the CTA. We've written about this. We're still at 60 to 70% ridership compared to pre-COVID times, and what it really means is that there's less demand for a lot of this service, and they've got to become much more efficient, fire a lot of people, and make it work with what they have. But instead, they're going to keep trying to get more money, raise taxes, and if anybody knows anything about Illinois, it's these highest property taxes in the country. So here you are trying to pile on even more taxes to home ownership. It's a crazy initiative, but just the next one that I think seems obvious under this kind of government.
Well, and like we are talking about with the government grocery store in the so-called food deserts, you don't think people have seen the videos of those National Honor Society types terrorizing people on the CTA or acting the fool in some other material way? You don't think people see that and say, I'll Uber, I'll walk, I'll ride a bike, I'll fly a kite, I'll do almost anything other than use the CTA for transportation?
Well, yeah, and that's why it's at 60% of ridership. And I'll tell you the other part I forgot to say: the miles traveled by the CTA and Metra is at pre-COVID levels. So they're driving empty trains or half-empty trains, and spending that money anyway. So it's the whole combination is back to the whole central planning that you just mentioned earlier. It's a failed model, and the more you can have the markets determine these things, the better off we are. Yeah.
Driving the empty trains, you got to keep up appearances. Just like keeping the doors open with one tomato in the bin. You and Backrack, right? Ed Backrack, co-authored a piece for the Wall Street Journal on Illinois pensions because they've been sweetened again. Don't by any means think that the largest unfunded pension liability in the country would dissuade Illinois politicians from continuing to try to, buy off portions of the electorate that are in line for government pensions. Give us the details.
Well, so, back in 2019, the police and fire for downstate downstate police and fire were the pensions were increased somewhat, and there were some promises apparently made to Chicago police and fire that they would be made equal with that. And so, never mind that Chicago police and fire pensions are among the worst funded in the country. They're literally insolvent. Never mind that there's billion-dollar deficits. We just discussed the CTA. We got the mess in Chicago, and yet lawmakers unanimously increased the benefits for Chicago police and fire. Now, look, I'm a huge supporter of the Chicago police and fire, but I also know that just more lies on top of more lies from lawmakers to the police isn't good. They're promising more benefits to Chicago police and fire, but what they've done is effectively even bankrupted more the pension plans and makes it even more likely that these pensions won't be paid out in the future. So, our lawmakers they don't care. I mean, they just don't care. They don't have a vision about this. They've just made things worse. And don't forget that these benefit increases for police and fire are massive property tax hikes for Chicagoans as well. And that's already a mess too. So we're spiraling here. And under the leadership of Pritzker, this bill is coming to fruition. Now it's on his desk to be signed. He hasn't signed it yet, and he's got a little bit of a problem because people are now looking to see is he going to be the one to perpetuate this pension mess in Illinois, and he likely will be.
Yeah, I mean it's just the same old. They actually punish the people they are purporting to help, right? So it's all well and good to make open-ended promises you can't keep, because somebody else will more likely than not be on the hook when those promises are no longer keepable, or when you have an outcome that perhaps you didn't anticipate when you were cheerleading the politicians. I note this with the $20 minimum wage in California, where we've got a new paper out. 3 economists at the University of California, San Diego, and Texas A&M find that employment in the fast food sector in California fell substantially after the imposition of the $20 an hour minimum wage, with estimates ranging from 2.3 to 3.9%. In other words, almost 18,000, entry-level jobs in the fast food sector went away because of the artificial increase in the hourly wage. Employers made other arrangements, and so now you've got a bunch of people that this was their entree into the labor market, and you go from there. Well, now they don't have that entree.
Well, yeah. And this brings us all back around to the grocery stores, right? I mean, the government can promise over and over and over to do more, and sadly, people buy it, right? I mean, this is the whole point: is that they buy. Okay, yeah, the grocery store can take care of me. My transportation agency can take care of me. This whole Medicaid blow up we're having in food stamps. The government is making so many promises, and once they get so big, they can't meet them, and it takes a long time for ordinary people to figure that out. And of course, it's what every country in that whole old Soviet bloc figured out, is that these promises eventually become false promises, and eventually you overthrow it. But it takes a lot of pain and a lot of decline before you can finally figure that out. And one tomato is the exact example of what many people lived through in the old Soviet days.
You're someone who's forward-looking, trying to stay ahead of the learning curve here. So, and we talked a bit about this last week with your colleague Mark Lennon. The hot real estate market. I mean, it's always hot in Chicago, regardless of the data. But right now, it is a little hotter than it's been in years because of the limited supply of available houses. So you see people getting perhaps more than the market would otherwise bear, and suggesting that, real estate prices in Illinois are holding. They're on the upswing. Essentially they're arguing that you can, or maybe wishing that you can outrun the math of the property taxes in this state. And I wanted to get your take on what you think is happening and will happen in the foreseeable future.
Well, yeah, I've done both a long-term view and a short-term view. And the long-term view is that we've done horribly. Illinois housing prices are pretty much at the bottom of the country. I think we're actually 50th in terms of housing appreciation in the last 20 years. Almost, when you adjust for inflation, almost no growth. So, and you compare that to the other states that are hot. And of course, you've got your Texas and your Tennessee and your Florida. They're super hot because so many people are moving there, and there's a lot of demand. Now, so we have a horrible situation, and a lot of that has to do with property taxes and a lack of just population growth and economic growth. We're also at the bottom of the country for that. So all that fuels itself and it spins. But now, if you look at the last couple of years, my colleague John has been pulling up the stat, and it's fascinating. And last year, for example, Chicago, if you look at the largest, the Case-Shiller cities, these are the big cities. There are two cities that are just at the very, very bottom of housing units growth. New increase in housing units. Chicago had a 0.04% increase in housing units in 2024. Well, no wonder you're going to have this problem in a place like Chicago in short term on pricing. And if you look at Cook County, it's been a massive collapse in creation of new housing units. So we're not building new units, and that's creating this supply demand situation that's shooting Chicago prices up, from what I can tell.
Yeah, but I mean, what's your how do you project out what's going to happen? The market response to demand that amazingly is a little bit ahead of supply here. Ultimately, you're going to see, ostensibly, you're going to see contractors provide that supply, and then the sort of underlying fundamentals of the math take over again, right?
Well, yeah, you would think that. I mean, you're talking about like the whole granny flat thing in Chicago.
Yeah, right.
There's going to be some increase in supply. But I think we're fighting two things. If you look at economic growth in the last since Pritzker took office, we're fourth worst in the country. So, and you're seeing corporations like invest less here and all that. So there's this big battle between a slowdown, and it's an ugly slowdown. And of course, you're still going to have. I mean, we still are the sixth largest state, right? Chicago is still the massive city it is, and so you're still going to have demand. And even if it's lower income demand, you're still going to have demand. And so we'll have that battle. But I'm not optimistic at all, even if we have in the short term this increase.
At least not without leadership change that brings with it policy changes, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Ted Dabrowski, President, Wirepoints, wirepoints.org, all things Illinois policy related. Thanks, Ted.
Thank you, guys.
And he joined us on the Turnkey.Provincial line.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer.
Your show keeps me alive during the week. There's nobody I'd rather listen to between 5 and 9 in the morning than you guys.
On AM 560, The Answer.
I'm Ben Barzita.
And I'm Matt Nadeau, founding partners of Barzita and Nadeau Wealth Management. And after more than a decade on the air, we're excited to be back with our brand new show, Money Hour Radio.
Tune in every Saturday at 1 p.m. on AM 560 as we break down retirement planning, market trends, tax reduction strategies, and our Advance and Protect investment approach.
It's sophisticated planning, independent analysis, and trusted guidance backed by over 40 years of combined experience.
Join us for Money Hour Radio, Saturdays at 1 p.m. on AM 560.